It's 5 years since a group of scientists based at the Vision Research Centre in Waterford began studying the human brain and Alzheimer's. The Vision Research Centre at the Waterford Institute of Technology is a world leader in research into age-related macular degeneration. But now they've taken their research one step further and established a link between age-related macular degeneration and Alzheimer's disease.
Professor John Nolan and I were working with the Irish Longitudinal Study on Ageing, and we examined the pigment in 5,000 subjects, and 12 tests of cognition, 12 tests of, if you like, performance with respect to memory, etc. were done. And what was found, and which we weren't looking for and weren't expecting, was that 11 of those 12 tests of cognition amongst 5,000 people in Ireland over the age of 55 were positively related to the amount of pigment you had in your eye. In other words, the more pigment you had at the back of your eye, the better your cognition and the less risk you had of developing dementia.
The study was carried out in conjunction with St Teresa's unit at the University Hospital in Waterford.
The study, I suppose, had a number of important findings. First of all, we found that patients with Alzheimer's disease compared to normal age-matched controls, in other words, patients who didn't have Alzheimer's disease, the Alzheimer's group had a much lower level of macular pigment compared to normal controls. Now, macular pigment is, or the macula is that part of the eye that's very important for central vision. So people with Alzheimer's disease had a poorer vision than those without Alzheimer's disease. And in fact, that's a new finding and a very interesting finding. So they had lower cognition, lower pigment levels, and lower vision compared to age-matched controls.
We started this research nearly 5 years ago now, in terms of starting to think about the human brain and to think about Alzheimer's. But in order to deal with that and in order to conduct quality research in that, we had to collaborate with the likes of Professor Rena Mulcahy from University Hospital Waterford, from Dr. Robert Cohen in St James's Hospital in Dublin, and all of these experts have skills that are essential to our ability to do this type of research. So I'm obviously very grateful to all their efforts. And you know, the team here itself is multidisciplinary in terms of its expertise: statistics, nutrition, analytical chemistry, vision, you know, and it requires all of this type of input for us to be able to do a study such as what we've just published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. So for all of those people, this contribution to science and to medicine is very important and something we're all very proud of.
Millions are spent each year researching dementia and Alzheimer's, but to date, no cure has been found.
Currently, there isn't a cure for Alzheimer's disease. It's really important to say there's two families of drugs that we use for delaying progression of Alzheimer's disease, but there has been no new drug since 2004. So really a lot of the exciting research now is in modifying risk factors and nutritional supplementation, and really getting the brain and the heart and the eye as healthy as can be by doing simple things.
The second part of the study involved giving the patients with Alzheimer's supplements containing lutein, zeaxanthine and mesozeaxanthine.
The contribution that supplementation would make to slowing down the progression of dementia has yet to be proven. What it does suggest very strongly is that this pigment at the back of the eye is a biomarker for your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease, or certainly of getting dementia. Now, that's very important in itself, but what it does tell us is that if your diet is poor, if you are deficient in these pigments at the back of the eye, you are at increased risk of Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Now, the importance of this, it rests on the following fact. These three pigments at the back of the eye are antioxidants, and we know that oxidative stress, that's free radical damage, is responsible at least in part for the development of dementia with increasing age. So it's not very surprising that if you have a lot of the pigment in your eye, and don't forget the eye is part of the brain, so if you have a lot of the pigment in your eye because you have a good diet, You probably have a lot of the pigment in your brain also, thus explaining why you have a reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease or dementia if you have a good diet. And this isn't the first finding of its kind. Many studies over the last 20 years have shown that if you want to reduce your risk of cognitive decline, of dementia, of Alzheimer's disease with increasing age, a healthy diet rich in fruit and vegetables is very much advisable.
The supplements given to the participants in the study contained 3 carotenoids, or nutrients, derived from the Mexican-grown marigold plant.
Marigold is one of the highest content of lutein available from a plant source, so it's that's the reason why we use marigold. We do the cultivations, we do the processing, and obtain a carotenoid, which mainly is lutein and zeaxanthin.
So if we already know that good nutrition is an important factor in reducing your risk of developing dementia, what's new about the Waterford study?
What's new about it is it's very, very targeted. There's 600 of these pigments, and they're called carotenoids in nature. There's 50 in your diet. There's 3 in your eye. So it's very, very exquisitely selective. And the accumulation of these 3 pigments, which nature has obviously taken enormous trouble to accumulate to the exclusion of all the other pigments in the eye. So it's taken the trouble to accumulate them in the retina, and these 3 seem to be particularly and disproportionately important in risk reduction. We know for age-related macular degeneration, we know for vision in healthy people, and we now suspect for dementia and Alzheimer's disease in the elderly.
The European Research Council has committed over 2 million in funding to the Waterford Vision Research Centre. And 86-year-old Dr. Alan Howard, the scientist who developed the world-famous Cambridge diet, has been working with the Macular Pigment Research Group over the past 6 years. The Howard Foundation has given over €1 million to the group.
It really is tremendous what we found, you know, unexpectedly, because there's a lot of macular pigment in the brain, and just as a shot to try and see what happened, we looked at Alzheimer patients and with age-matched controls, and the difference is enormous. In other words, Alzheimer patients have very little macular pigment. And that means that their brain has also depleted the macular pigment. And of course this may reflect on why they have their Alzheimer's. Of course we want to do further trials into larger numbers, but also to look at whether we can prevent Alzheimer's by giving macular pigment. Because, you know, if we could do that, it would be much more important than people getting it and having to treat it.
It's very interesting because it's such a positive story. We're actually helping to prevent the onset of key diseases. I mean, the first one your viewers will be aware of is with the age-related macular degeneration. But there's obviously a further story there that, okay, is still to be developed, still to be fully explained, and that'll be really, really exciting. So that's really where, you know, the research at Waterford is going to be absolutely crucial in that.
So John, I suppose I'm very excited by the results of the study because it has created a lot more studies that we need to do. So obviously we need to go on now, and we need to, the group that we looked at in this study had really mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. And as time went on, their cognitive function declined. So now what we would like to do is we'd like to get people with mild cognitive impairment. And really what we want to do is see, by introducing the supplementation at that stage, do we alter cognition? And the likelihood is that the nutritional supplementation to achieve improvements in cognition will be multifactorial. It won't be just one supplement, it will be combining a number of things. And it's also likely that the earlier you do this, the better.
Robert Cookling works in the area of ophthalmic pharmaceuticals.
My mother has one of this disease, or neurodegenerative disease, and she's not taking anything else than this carotenoid. But there is no other hope from some perspectives. And I believe that's a link which they found, that Alzheimer's, in a way connected with the macular pigment, is opening research work in a way which really can help millions of people.
It fits into a new thrust in Alzheimer's research in which we look at the whole person and their quality of life when they have the disease.
You can measure individual photoreceptors.
From every single place.
Professor Nolan and the team in Waterford have collaborated with other scientists throughout the world, including those at the University of Georgia.
The Waterford group and Professor Nolan and Professor Beatty were the first to really extend it to Alzheimer's patients and measure lutein and zeaxanthin and mesozeaxanthin status specifically in those groups. And they had earlier, one of the great strengths of the Waterford group is they have this very big cohort of subjects, thousands, that they can study and follow as part of this very large longitudinal study that they're doing across the country, and then relate it to a huge host of factors that they can measure in them to the macular xanthophils and cognition and degenerative disease, and this extension to Alzheimer's was a very nice example of that.
One thing that I think these studies give us is the reminder that prevention is really key here. We can certainly intervene and change function, but if we do it early enough, we've really got a chance at prevention. And that, I think, is a very important take home here.